Korea is seeking to attract 30 million foreign travelers by the year 2030. We have more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Thursday's edition of Press Perspective for December 11th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sunhee. Tourism, it's emerging as an important engine for economic growth, and South Korea is working to take full advantage of this reality. For more on this, I have Professor Shin Hak-seung at Hanyang University live on the line. Professor Shin, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Hi, Sonny. It's great to be on the show again. Thank you for having me.
Right. I also have Chris Tharp, contributing writer for the Telegraph, joining us virtually as well. Chris, it's been ages since we last spoke. Welcome back.
Great to be back, Sonny.
Right. Professor Shin, we shall start with you. Let's start off then with the statistics. What are the numbers telling us about travel to South Korea this year among foreign travelers? And also, how big is the country's tourism industry, Professor Shin?
Yes, if we look at the most recent statistics, about 14 million international visitors came to Korea between January and September 2025. That's a 16% increase compared to the same period last year. Korea's all-time record for inbound tourism was 17.5 million visitors in 2019. Considering that tourist arrivals typically peak in the second half of the year, we expect the number of visitors in 2025 to exceed 18.5 million. In other words, Korea is on track to set a new historic record. At the same time, the composition of inbound tourists is also changing. Before the pandemic, Korea relied heavily on Chinese visitors, but after the COVID-19 pandemic, the market has diversified. We are now seeing strong growth not only from China, but also from Japan, Taiwan, the United States, Hong Kong, and other parts of Asia and North America. As of 2024, Korea ranks 23rd globally in terms of inbound tourism volume, which is lower than we might expect given the country's economic size. However, global interest in K-culture and related content has surged as Korean music, dramas, food, and digital content continue to gain worldwide attention. Interest in Korea as a travel destination is also rising. Naturally, this is expanding our pool of potential visitors and driving growth in future inbound tourism demand.
And Chris, then, for the sake of some perspective from the ground, what have you been observing with regard to the number of foreign travelers to the southern port city of Busan?
Well, the numbers that Professor Shin just gave us check out, at least anecdotally, what I've been seeing here in Busan. For example, if you walk the markets or the streets near Haeundae Beach, the big famous beach, of course, and the prime tourist destination here in Busan, you will hear languages from around the world. You hear Chinese and Thai and Japanese, German, French, a lot of English. And again, we are seeing a diversification of the visitors that we've never seen before here. Especially, I arrived in Busan about 21 years ago, and tourism was a trickle. You would see groups of Chinese and Japanese tourists, in places from other places in Asia, but you didn't see any Western tourists. You'd see a lone backpacker and ask them, what are they doing here? But now, it's the gates have been opened, and people are coming to Korea to experience everything that's wonderful that they see in the K-dramas, that they see in the movies, that, they hear in the music, and to eat the food. And this is not just in Seoul, it's all over the country, and it's definitely happening here in Busan. So you go to Haeundae, you go to Nampodong near the fish market, and you will see people from around the world. You will hear a whole range of languages being spoken, and people really enjoying what Korea has to offer. So yeah, it feels like kind of a magic time right now as far as tourism is concerned.
Right.
There's something in the air. Korea's having its moment.
Right, and given that momentum, Professor Shin, South Korea aims to attract, like I mentioned at the start of our talk, 30 million foreign travelers by the year 2030. How do authorities plan to execute this ambitious plan, Professor Shin, and what are your thoughts with regard to its prospects?
Yes, to reach 30 million inbound visitors by 2030, Korea needs highly concrete and realistic strategies. The first step is an assessment of whether our current tourism infrastructure can actually accommodate 30 million foreign visitors. This includes not only hotel capacity, but also transportation systems, destination carrying capacity, and the overall ability of our tourism ecosystem to observe increased demand. Another key point is that Korea must move beyond its Seoul-centric tourism structure. Achieving 30 million visitors is impossible if most travelers continue to stay only in Seoul. We need to create tourism products that link Seoul with regional destinations, while also expanding accommodation options in local cities and developing region-specific high-quality tourism content. Only then can we effectively disperse demand and ensure that visitors experience Korea's full diversity. Lastly, attracting 30 million tourists cannot be accomplished by focusing on new visitors. In other words, repeat visitation is essential. Unfortunately, Korea's repeat visitor rate is relatively low. This is largely because our tourism experiences and content remain limited in variety, and many aspects of our tourism environment are still not as user-friendly as they could be. To build a loyal base of returning visitors, Korea needs to offer a more convenient, smart, and travel-friendly environment, along with diverse, compelling tourism products that encourage people not only to visit once, but to come back again and again.
Right. Staying with that cautious tone then, Professor Shin, in neighboring Japan, spending by foreign travelers, it's included in the country's export list. And this spending now stands second on that list after auto exports and ahead of semiconductor and even steel exports. The revenue, however, Professor Shin, comes at the expense of the Japanese people who have been sounding the alarm over the years about over-tourism. Accordingly, pundits, you included of course, believe a feasible plan for greater tourism revenue needs to include measures against the risks of over-tourism. What do you propose, Professor, to promote healthy tourism?
Yeah, that's a very important point. Until now, Korea's tourism policies have mainly focused on increasing the number of visitors. But around the world, over-tourism has become a serious social issue. Even some destinations are organizing boycotts against tourists. So if we want sustainable growth, we need to shift from purely quantitative growth to qualitative growth of tourism. As I mentioned earlier, Korea has set a goal of attracting 30 million visitors within the next 5 years. However, discussions about what comes with that growth, such as social tensions, environmental pressure, and the impact on resident quality of life are still missing. This is concerning because the tourism industry cannot be sustainable if local residents are unhappy. If Koreans start to feel hostile toward tourists, visitors' numbers will inevitably decline, just as positive perception of K-culture encourage people to visit Korea. Negative travel experiences can quickly harm the country's image. This is why our tourism system must take resident rights and quality of life into account. Most importantly, the economic benefits generated by tourism should circulate back into local communities so that residents can see and feel how tourism directly improves their daily lives.
Right, and speaking about local communities, Chris, in late October, I believe, Busan hosted its inaugural Global City Tourism Summit. Could you tell us a bit about this particular event, as well as your thoughts regarding its implications for Busan as a travel destination?
Yeah, this was an extraordinary event that they hosted at the end of October, the 27th through the 29th, a 3-day affair where about 400 distinguished guests from around the world that included tourism policy officials from 22 cities across 14 countries and representatives of international organizations, experts from academia, politicians, and people who are players in the tourism industry congregated in Haeundae around the Paradise Hotel and various other venues to discuss the future of tourism, and especially how Busan enters into this equation, because Busan is looking to establish itself as its own tourism hub. And what Professor Shin was saying earlier about so much tourism in Korea being Seoul-centric, of course, we love Seoul. Seoul's a brilliant, beautiful city. It is the center of everything, commercially and culturally, artistically in Korea, but it's not the only place. And so Busan is a wonderful destination. And so this meeting was to kind of sell Busan a little bit and also to make different connections, because the summit was designed as a global cooperation platform to strengthen the position of Busan in the global tourism network. And I think it was largely successful because as I've seen on the streets, I'm seeing every day, more and more people are coming here, and Busan's profile is rising as another sort of flavor of Korea. You have Seoul, and then Busan's, it's a different vibe down here. It's a different feeling, but still a very large Korean city that's very exciting, very delicious. So I think this bodes well for Busan's future as a tourist hub. And hopefully people will keep coming here. And hopefully the connections that were made during this conference will continue to bear fruit.
And talking about those connections, Chris, speaking to the local media here, amid that summit in Busan in late October, the mayor of Rwanda's capital, Kigali, Samuel Dusengimumva, highlighted Busan as a model for Rwanda's tourism. What aspects of Busan did he seek to underscore, and what are your takeaways as a resident there in Busan?
Well, it's kind of an honor for Mr. Dusengimumva to want to replicate what we're doing here in Busan, because Kigali, Rwanda, is a massive success story when we're talking about African cities. It's widely considered to be the cleanest, most efficient, and kind of most pleasant city in all of the African continent. And there's a lot of cities that it competes with. And let's not forget that Rwanda in the 90s was the site of basically a civil war and a terrible genocide, like some of the worst things that can happen. And the country has emerged from that and reinvented itself, and Kigali is now a shining example of what a city could be. So that's a big compliment. Now, what the mayor of Kigali sees in Busan, of course, he sees the cleanliness that is apparent on the streets of Kigali mirrored here. Busan's a pretty clean city, generally. And so he respects that and wants to, find ways to sort of expose how we can keep our cities cleaner. But he was very taken with the technology which is going on here in Busan, especially the AI integration into the infrastructure and the water. The city has introduced all sorts of initiatives using technology and digitization to make things more efficient. Things from garbage collection and water and the electrical grid. And so Kigali, is good as a city as it is, it's still looking for ways to become more efficient and to use this new technology to make a smart city. And of course, the smart city initiatives are being adopted in Busan. So I think they'd like to do the same in Kigali. And the implications, again, for Busan is just, it puts the city in the spotlight. It shows that, this is 3.5 million people in the city proper, many more if you include the surrounding area. It's a lot of people to organize, to transport, to electrify, and I think Busan does a very good job of that. And then again, there's tourism, which is opening up as well. So I think he saw, the mayor of Kigali saw what we're doing here and understood it in a kind of intrinsic way, which was nice.
Right, indeed. Moving forward, Professor Shin, what do you suppose has been the impact of social media on tourism here in South Korea? I mean, if you were to walk us through the pros and cons of social media on traveling to South Korea among foreign visitors, of course.
Yes, social media today has a huge influence on tourism. As we all know, it's no longer just a marketing tool. It has become a direct channel for where people actually discover and buy tourism products. And travel is a very visible, experience-based activity, so people naturally share it online through social media platforms. That's why so much of what we see on SNS today is travel-related content. For the tourism industry, especially small businesses, this is a big advantage. Even without big advertising budgets, local cafes, guest houses, or small attractions can promote themselves through social media and reach a wide audience. It also helps lesser-known regional destinations get discovered, which can bring more visitors and support the local economy. But there are some concerns as well. Since anyone can post anything, not all information on tourism is reliable. And we are also seeing a rise in what I call photo-driven travel. This indicates that people visit places mainly to take pictures rather than to really experience the destination. When this happens, tourist numbers may go up, but the actual economic benefit for the community may not increase very much because visitors often spend little time and money beyond taking the photo. So overall, social media is a powerful tool that can greatly support the growth of Korea's tourism industry, but at the same time, we need to guide this influence in a healthier direction. Instead of focusing only on hotspots for pictures on social media, we should encourage deeper, more meaningful travel experiences, ones that highlight local culture, community stories, and the unique value of each region. If we can use social media not just to attract visitors, but to inspire richer, higher quality travel, then it can become a strong driver of sustainable tourism.
Right, for sure. Chris, with regard to photo-driven travel mentioned by Professor Shin, I wonder, is this so-called selfie tourism a phenomenon there in Busan as well? And if that is the case, what has been the public response to that?
Well, it's, there are parts of Seoul where I think it's worse, but we are seeing it in Busan. I would say particularly in the Gamcheon Munhwa Mall, the Gamcheon Cultural Village, which is a beautiful collection of these tiny houses on this hillside with murals and artwork overlooking the water. It's perhaps the #1 attraction in the city these days, but it's also become a bit of a victim of its own success because it is so Instagrammable. You have, busloads of tourists unloading there with selfie sticks and, looking for that perfect shot. And souvenir shops have sprung up, and it's also disrupted the lives of the people in the neighborhood who I think enjoy some of the economic benefits but don't enjoy the crowds. And also it's, again, like to reiterate what Professor Shin said, it's getting that photo, it's checking something off the list while not engaging with the surroundings of the culture in any sort of deep or meaningful way. And so you see it there, maybe a little bit at Haeundae Beach, but generally people who come to Busan are already going a little deeper, I think, in their Korean experience. They've already left Seoul. They've come all the way down to the other end of the country. So I think people who come here tend to be a bit more curious. And also food is a big draw. That's why I do food tours as well as a part-time gig, and it's been a lot of fun just introducing people to, we go to like pojang matchas and like little, like matjibs, little hole-in-the-wall places that, you wouldn't discover. And the people who sign up for these sort of experiences are very curious. And so that's why things like food are a very good way to key people in to the culture and also to spend their money in independently owned businesses and to benefit the community as a whole. And the tourists themselves get a great benefit. They go home enriched with this great experience, not having only eaten delicious food, but having seen the neighborhood and seen the cooks at work and, the nitty-gritty that really makes it all tick. So I would continue to encourage this kind of tourism. So I don't think selfie tourism is a big issue here, but you do see it.
Right. Food tours, Chris, I have to admit they're my favorite as well. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Chris, as always, thank you so much for your time and thoughts today.
Yeah, thank you.
And Professor Shin, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you. It was a big pleasure here today.
Right, you're most welcome. Right, on that note, we end this edition of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching. Do join us again same time tomorrow when we touch upon some of this year's news stories in pictures.